The whole village fell silent the moment the bride said, "I refuse." Not because the wedding was forced. Everyone already knew that part. But because the poor farmer standing at the altar did something nobody expected. He smiled. Not an angry smile. Not a broken smile. A calm smile, like a man who knew something the entire village didn't. And that was the exact moment the richest family in Emeka village realized they had made a terrible mistake. The drums stopped beating. Women covered their mouths in shock. Even the priest froze. Because what happened next would destroy secrets hidden for more than 20 years. And turn the life of a mocked farmer into the biggest surprise the village had ever seen. Before we continue, subscribe for more emotional African stories that will leave you speechless. The sun burned heavily over Emeka village that morning. People filled the church early, not because they came to celebrate love, but because they came to witness humiliation. Everyone knew Chioma did not love the man she was about to marry. Chioma was the daughter of Chief Okafor, the wealthiest businessman in the entire region. She grew up in luxury, attended the best schools in Lagos, and dreamed of marrying a rich politician or successful billionaire. But standing at the altar beside her was Emeka. A poor farmer. A quiet man who spent most of his days working under the hot sun with torn slippers and rough hands. To the villagers, the match made no sense. People whispered as Emeka adjusted his old suit. "Look at his shoes. They say he only owns one piece of land. How can Chief Okafor allow this embarrassment?" But nobody knew the real reason behind the wedding. 3 months earlier, Chief Okafor's company had secretly collapsed under massive debt. He owed dangerous men millions of naira. If the news got out, his entire empire would fall apart. Then suddenly, Emeka appeared with an offer. He would clear all the debts completely. On one condition. Chioma must marry him. Chief Okafor nearly exploded with anger. "You poor nobody," he shouted that night. "How dare you even dream of marrying my daughter?" But Emeka remained calm. "It's your choice, Chief. Refuse, and lose everything by next week." Chief Okafor investigated him immediately. But strangely, nobody knew much about Emeka. He lived simply. Worked quietly. Never boasted. Never fought. Never begged. And somehow, he had enough money to erase debts powerful men feared. That mystery terrified Chief Okafor more than poverty itself. Chioma cried for days when her father told her. "You're selling me," she screamed. "I'm saving this family." Chief Okafor replied. "I would rather die than marry that farmer." But the wedding date was fixed anyway. Now, standing inside the church, Chioma felt hatred boiling inside her chest. She looked at Emeka with disgust. His calmness irritated her even more. Why was he not ashamed? Why was he not nervous? Why did he act like a man completely in control? The priest cleared his throat. "Do you, Chioma Okafor, take Emeka as your lawfully wedded husband?" Silence. The entire church leaned forward. Chioma's eyes filled with tears. Then she grabbed the microphone. "No." Gasps exploded across the church. "I refuse," she shouted louder. "I will never marry a dirty farmer." Women began murmuring. Chief Okafor nearly collapsed from embarrassment. But Emeka simply smiled. Then he slowly turned toward Chief Okafor. "Should I tell them the truth now, or later?" Fear immediately entered the chief's eyes. "What truth?" Chioma asked. Nobody moved. The church suddenly felt too small. Emeka reached into his pocket and removed an old photograph. He handed it to Chioma. The moment she saw it, confusion covered her face. The picture showed a younger version of her mother standing beside a man she had never seen before. But the strange part was this. The man looked exactly like Emeka. "Who is this?" Chioma whispered. Her mother, sitting in the front row, suddenly burst into tears. Chief Okafor shouted angrily, "Stop this nonsense." But Emeka's voice became colder. "You stole another man's life, Chief. Today, the truth returns." The church exploded with confusion. Chioma stared between her parents and Emeka. "What is happening?" Then her mother finally spoke with trembling lips. "Emeka is not who you think he is. 25 years earlier, before Chief Okafor became rich, he had a business partner named Adewale. Adewale was brilliant, kind, and extremely successful. But he trusted the wrong friend. Chief Okafor secretly forged documents, transferred properties into his own name, and framed Adewale for financial crimes he never committed. The scandal destroyed him. He lost everything overnight. Unable to survive the shame, Adewale disappeared from society with his pregnant wife. Years later, he died in poverty. But before dying, he gave his son one mission. Take back the truth, but never become evil like them. That son was Emeka. The church became completely silent. Chioma's body trembled. "No," she whispered. Emeka nodded slowly. "Yes. The wealth your family enjoyed for years belonged to my father." Chief Okafor stood up furiously. "He's lying." But Emeka calmly opened a brown file. Inside were bank records, property documents, court papers, signed confessions from former workers. Every secret buried for decades was sitting inside that file. The villagers gasped louder with every page. Chief Okafor's face lost color. For the first time in years. The mighty chief looked weak. Chioma turned toward her father with tears streaming down her face. "Tell me it's not true." But he couldn't speak. That silence became the answer. Chioma stepped backward in horror. Everything she believed about her family suddenly collapsed. The luxury, the respect, the pride. All built on stolen pain. Then Emeka said something nobody expected. "I never wanted revenge." Everyone looked at him. "My father taught me something before he died. He said wealth can disappear, but character reveals the true value of a human being." Chioma stared at him, confused. "Then why force this wedding?" Emeka looked directly into her eyes. "Because I wanted to see the kind of people you truly were when your power disappeared." The church froze again. Emeka continued quietly. "I already paid your family's debts weeks ago. I never planned to collect anything back." Chief Okafor looked shocked. "What?" "Yes," Emeka said. "The marriage condition was never about love or money." He paused. It was a test. People exchanged confused glances. A man who steals eventually reveals himself under pressure. And today, the entire village has seen the truth. Chief Okafor dropped into his chair weakly. His empire, his respect, his secrets. Everything was gone. But the biggest shock had not even arrived yet. An expensive convoy suddenly entered the church compound. Luxury vehicles lined outside. Security guards rushed toward the entrance. The villagers moved aside in confusion. Then a tall elderly man entered wearing a clean white outfit. The moment he saw Emeka, he smiled proudly. "Sir," one of the guards whispered respectfully. "The board members are waiting." The villagers looked lost. "Board members? What board members?" The old man faced the church crowd. "You people truly thought this young man was only a farmer?" Chief Okafor's eyes widened. The man laughed softly. "Emeka owns one of the largest agricultural export companies in West Africa." The church exploded. Women screamed. Men stood up in disbelief. The old man continued. He chose to live simply because he believes pride destroys wisdom. While others chased luxury, he built factories, farms, schools, and businesses quietly across the country. Chioma covered her mouth in shock. The poor farmer, everyone mocked, was richer than all the wealthy families in the village combined. Suddenly, every insult people made against him became painfully embarrassing. But Emeka showed no pride. No arrogance. No revenge. Only peace. Then he turned toward Chioma. "I gave you many chances to treat me like a human being," he said softly. "Not once did you ask about my dreams, my story, or my heart. You only saw my clothes." Chioma broke down crying. Because deep inside, she knew he was right. For the first time in her life, she realized poverty was not the absence of money. Sometimes it was the absence of humility. Days later, Chief Okafor lost most of his properties after investigations reopened old fraud cases. The same villagers who once praised him now avoided him completely. But Emeka did something nobody expected again. He helped the workers who lost jobs after the company collapsed. He paid school fees for struggling children. He rebuilt the community farm. And slowly, people stopped seeing him as the poor farmer. They began calling him something else. A real man. As for Chioma, she disappeared from society for many months. People thought she left out of shame. But the truth was different. She had finally started learning how to live without pride. One evening, nearly a year later, she visited Emeka's farm quietly. No makeup. No luxury clothes. No arrogance. Just honesty. She found him planting crops beside his workers. When Emeka looked up, he barely recognized her. Chioma smiled nervously. "I came to apologize," she said. Emeka remained silent. Tears filled her eyes. "For the first time in my life, I understand what my mother meant when she said character is wealth." The wind moved softly across the farm. Then Emeka smiled gently. Not because of revenge. Not because he had won. But because pain had finally produced wisdom. And sometimes, the greatest surprise is not hidden wealth. It's discovering the true value of a human heart. If this story touched you, subscribe for more powerful emotional stories like this. And remember, never mock humble beginnings. Some people dress simply because they have nothing to prove.